Hello everyone, welcome to another video from the AI Loop. Today we're going to be looking at a classification metric called recall. So let's see how it works. In the previous video that I'll link below, I've talked about precision. This is also a metric that is used to evaluate our model on a classification task. And today we're going to be talking about recall. But what I want to give you an overview of is that both of these metrics are associated with like four fundamental terms. There is true positive, true negative, false positive, and false negative. So these are the four values that help us in calculating either the precision or the recall. And today we're going to be talking about recall specifically, so let's look into it. Now recall is given by the formula of true positive by true positive plus false negative. And let's look at the denominator first, like this part, and try to understand what is going on. And when you say true positive plus false negative, we're referring to the model predictions here. So let's say we have two classes, like class 1 and class 2, and we're trying to calculate the recall for class 1. So true positive is the instance where the model predicted a particular sample to be of class 1 and it is actually of class 1, or it actually belongs to class 1. And false negative is an instance where a sample is passed to the model and it predicted the sample to belong to class 2, but it actually belongs to class 1. So that's the instance of a false negative, or how you could interpret that. And when we say true positive plus false negative, what we're getting is the total number of samples that belong to class 1, right? So in this way, what the denominator is accounting for is the total number of samples that belong to class 1. So let's say you have that data set here and you have 10 samples and 15 samples. 10 samples belong to class 1 and 15 samples belong to class 2. The denominator here would account to 10, right? I'm so sorry, this is messy, so I'll just go down. So the denominator here will account to 10 samples. And what is the numerator account to is the true positives, that is the instances where the model predicted the class or the sample to be of class 1 and it is actually of class 1. So let's say out of like 25 samples that we gave, it predicted 8 of them to be of class 1 and 8 of them are of class 1. Okay, so that means the true positive is 8, right? And the rest will be a false negative because it did not get hold of them, and this will account to 0.8 or 80%. Okay, so when we say we have a recall of 0.8, I mean, you could interpret it in terms of percentage too. That would become just 80%. And when you say you have a recall of 0.8 or 80%, what you mean is that for the intended class, for class 1 that we are targeting or we are calculating the recall for, given 100 samples or like given 100% of our samples, we are confident that our model is able to capture 80% of them, right? So that's what recall means. And to kind of understand this intuitively, or to give you an example, let's say the most common scenario would be a medical example. So yeah, let's say you have a model that is able to detect patients with cancer and patients without cancer, right? So the thing is that here, what's most important to you as a doctor or someone building the model that accounts for this task is that you need to be able to identify all the patients that have cancer. So let's say I have 100 patients whose samples or some data is being passed into the model, and let's say out of these 100 patients I have 60 of them who have certain type of cancer, and we want to like actually know that through the model. What we really care is a high recall on this class, on the cancer class, because when you say you have 60% of your samples with people who have cancer and you pass it through the model, you should be able to identify 60% of the patients who have cancer, right? Because you cannot afford to misaccount or mislabel patients who have cancer as the people who do not have cancer. See, at the point you do not care about the recall of people who don't have cancer. You do not care, as in it is not as important as this. But for the people who have cancer, it is really important that you get hold of this. So when you're training model like this, what you do is that, let's say our class 1 is for people who have cancer, and class 2 belongs to like people who don't have cancer. What you do is, for this particular class, you target for a very high recall, right? This is like a intuitive explanation of a recall. So I hope I really made it easy for you to understand this right here. So that's it about recall. I'll be posting more videos on deep learning topics, but please subscribe to the AI Loop. It'll be really helpful and motivate me to make content about deep learning. And thank you everyone for tuning in.